The wind in the upper Kinner Valley was a treacherous, spiteful thing, a ghost that howled through the jagged peaks with no discernible pattern. It was a sniper's nightmare. From their overwatch position carved into the face of the ridge, SEAL Team 7 had been staring at the same fortified compound for 36 hours, waiting. The air was thin, the cold relentless. For Petty Officer Alex Carter, the team's junior sniper, the wind was just another variable in a complex, beautiful equation. He lay perfectly still behind his .338 Lapua Magnum, his eye pressed to the spotting scope, his breathing a slow, measured rhythm that was almost meditative. He was 24, with a quiet intensity and a methodical patience that his team leader, Lieutenant Commander Thorne, frequently mistook for fear. Thorne was a warrior of the old school, a man who believed in overwhelming force and aggressive action. He saw Alex, whom the team had nicknamed Kid, as a liability, too cerebral, too slow, too much of a thinker in a world that demanded instinct. The team's senior sniper, a hardened operator named Reaper, was Thorne's ideal. Reaper was all instinct, a man who seemed to fire from the gut, his confidence a palpable force. He saw Alex's endless calculations of windage, Coriolis effect, and barometric pressure as academic nonsense. "You can't spreadsheet your way to a kill, kid," he'd sneer. "You either have the gift or you don't." Alex never responded. He just continued his work, his logbook filled with meticulous, hand-drawn charts of the valley's wind patterns. He wasn't trying to spreadsheet his way to a kill. He was trying to understand the soul of the battlefield. He was doing what he had been taught. Their target was a high-level insurgent commander, a ghost who had orchestrated a dozen attacks on coalition forces. Intel had finally pinned him down in this mountain fortress, but he was surrounded by over 50 fighters, anti-air emplacements, and a network of spotters. A direct assault was suicide. The only option was a single, impossible shot. The target was known to take his morning tea on a specific balcony for exactly 3 minutes, just after sunrise. The distance was 2,250 meters. The shot would have to travel across the valley, through the swirling, unpredictable winds, and find its mark in a window of opportunity that was fleeting at best. It was a shot that most snipers would deem impossible. Thorne, in the mission briefing, had made his preference clear. "Reaper, you're on the trigger. Kid, you're on the glass. Call the wind, and for God's sake, try to keep up." During the grueling 2-day infiltration to the ridge, Alex's quiet observance had saved them twice. He had spotted the faint shimmer of a tripwire that everyone else had missed, and had noticed the unnatural arrangement of rocks that concealed an IED. Both times, Thorne had brushed it off as luck. He refused to see the meticulous skill behind the quiet recruit's eyes. Now they were in position, the sun just beginning to crest the eastern peaks. The valley below was a cauldron of shifting air currents. Reaper was settled behind his rifle, his breathing steady, the picture of a confident predator. Alex was beside him, his eye glued to the spotting scope, murmuring wind calls. Wind at 7 o'clock, variable gusts from 12 to 15. Downdraft in the mid-valley. Reaper grunted. "Just give me a number, kid." "There is no one number," Alex said softly. "It's a river. You have to see the flow." Reaper scoffed, dialing in his scope based on his own gut feeling. "Right, a river. Whatever you say, Professor." The target appeared. A man in flowing robes walked onto the balcony, a cup in his hand. The 3-minute window had begun. The wind howled. "No shot." Thorne's voice crackled over the comms from their command post to click back. "The wind is too erratic. Stand down." "I can make it," Reaper insisted, his eye pressed to his scope. "I have him." "Negative, Reaper. That is an order," Thorne commanded. But Reaper was a creature of instinct, not orders. He saw the shot, he felt the moment, and he squeezed the trigger. The crack of the rifle was deafening in the thin mountain air. They watched the vapor trail of the bullet as it screamed across the valley. For a moment, it flew true. Then a sudden, violent gust caught it, pushing it a foot to the left. The bullet sparked harmlessly against the stone wall of the compound, feet from the target. The insurgent commander dropped his cup and scrambled back inside. The shot had been missed, and all hell broke loose. Alarms blared from the compound below. The The quiet valley erupted in a storm of gunfire. Heavy machine gun emplacements on the fortress walls opened up, their tracers reaching out towards the sniper's nest. The distinct thump, thump, thump of mortar fire began, and seconds later, explosions began to walk their way up the ridge, shaking the very rock they were lying on. Compromised. We are compromised. Thorn yelled over the comms. Reaper, what did you do? I gave you direct order. The mission was a catastrophic failure. What had been a stealth operation was now a desperate fight for survival. The team was pinned down, their position known, and a heavily armed enemy was now hunting them. The mortar rounds are getting closer, the explosions deafening. Debris and shrapnel rained down around them. We have to pull back, Reaper shouted, scrambling from his position. They have us zeroed in. But Alex hadn't moved. Amid the chaos, the gunfire, the screaming of the wind, he was an island of impossible calm. He was still looking through his scope, his breathing as slow and steady as it had been before the battle began. The insurgent commander had made a mistake. In the confusion, he had decided to flee. A single black armored vehicle was now speeding out of the compound's rear gate, heading for a narrow pass that would lead him to safety. He's getting away. Another team member yelled. It's over. Thorn's voice was grim over the radio. Fall back to Rally Point, Charlie. Now, that's an order. But Alex didn't hear him. His world had shrunk to the space between his eye and the lens. He saw the vehicle, a moving target at over 2,500 meters. He saw the wind, the same treacherous river that had defeated Reaper. But he saw the currents, the eddies, the places where the flow was weak and strong. He saw the path. He had been taught to see it. He had been taught that a true master doesn't fight the elements. He uses them. He adjusted his scope, his clicks precise, deliberate. He took a single, slow breath, letting half of it out. His finger rested on the trigger. He wasn't aiming at the vehicle. He wasn't even aiming in front of it. He was aiming at a point in the empty air where he knew the bullet and the vehicle would intersect in 5 seconds. He was aiming at a ghost. He squeezed the trigger. The rifle bucked against his shoulder. The single round left the barrel and began its long, lonely journey. The other SEALs, in the process of scrambling to retreat, stopped and watched the vapor trail. It didn't fly straight. As it crossed the valley, it seemed to bend, to curve almost imperceptibly, as if steered by an unseen hand, riding the very currents of wind that should have sent it astray. It was a shot that defied the laws of physics. It was a shot that was impossible. Far below, the black vehicle continued, speeding toward the pass. Then its front windshield simply exploded in a spiderweb of fractured glass. The vehicle swerved violently, crashed into a rock wall, and flipped over in a cloud of dust and fire. The target was neutralized. The impossible shot had landed. The entire valley fell silent, the enemy gunfire ceasing in the shocked confusion. In the sudden, ringing quiet, Thorn's voice came over the comms, a choked, disbelieving whisper. Shot. What was that shot? Alex pulled his eye back from the scope, his heartbeat the only sound in his ears. The chaos had ended. The mission was complete. He had done what he was trained to do. The debriefing room back at the FOB was cold and sterile. The gun cam footage played on a large screen in a silent loop. The impossibly curved trajectory of Alex's bullet, the final, perfect impact. Lieutenant Commander Thorn watched it for the 10th time, his face a mask of profound, unsettling confusion. He was a man who had built his career on the predictable, brutal calculus of warfare. What he was watching did not compute. It wasn't just a great shot. It was a violation of the known principles of ballistics. The other members of the team sat in silence, their earlier disdain for the kid now replaced by a wary, almost fearful respect. They had been on the ridge. They had felt the wind. They knew that shot shouldn't have been possible. Thorn finally turned off the monitor and faced Alex, who sat quietly at the end of the table, cleaning his rifle with the same meticulous calm he applied to everything. Explain it to me, Carter, Thorn said, his voice low. Explain that shot. The wind was gusting at 20 knots across that valley. Our ballistics computer said the probability of a hit was less than 1%. You didn't just hit the target. You hit a moving vehicle from 2,500 meters. How? Alex looked up, his hands never ceasing their rhythmic polishing of the rifle's bolt. The wind wasn't a wall, sir. It was a current. I just aimed for the other side of the eddy. Thorne shook his head, frustration and all warring on his face. What eddy? What are you talking about? That's not a technique. That's not something we teach. He took a step closer, his voice dropping. I've been in this business for 20 years. I've seen the best snipers in the world. No one can read the wind like that. No one can make a bullet curve. He paused, his mind racing, connecting dots he hadn't known existed. The quietness, the patience, the almost supernatural awareness. And that shot, a signature, a fingerprint left on the air itself. A memory from a classified briefing years ago. A story about a legendary sniper from the Vietnam era. A ghost who was said to be able to bend bullets. A master of an esoteric art of shooting that was considered a myth. They called him the Whisperer because you only heard the sound of his single, perfect shot after the target was already down. He had supposedly vanished after the war, taking his secrets with him. Thorne's eyes widened. The blood drained from his face. He looked at Alex, at the young, unassuming face of his junior sniper, and he finally saw the truth, a truth so impossible it made his head spin. That shot. Thorne began, his voice a choked whisper, the question hanging in the air, heavy with the weight of legends. There was only one man who could do that. One man who taught it. A ghost. They said he never took a student. He stared at Alex, his mind finally making the terrifying, brilliant connection. The question wasn't a question anymore. It was a statement of dawning, horrified realization. It was you. But the question was wrong. He wasn't asking if Alex was the ghost. He was asking if the ghost was in him. He finally knew the sniper was taught by a ghost. Alex didn't answer with words. He simply met Thorne's gaze, and in the quiet, steady depth of his eyes, Thorne saw the reflection of a legend that had never died. The room was silent, the unspoken truth more powerful than any confession. Reaper and the other team members looked at Alex, then at their commander, their faces a mixture of confusion and awe. They had just been part of a mission where a myth had stepped out of the history books and saved their lives. Thorne finally sank into a chair, the rigid authority in his posture crumbling. My God, he breathed. All this time, the way you move, the way you watch. It wasn't hesitation. It was his discipline. He looked up at Alex, his eyes filled with a new, profound respect. I need to know his name. Alex finished cleaning his rifle, the final click of the bolt reassembling, echoing in the quiet room. He said names don't matter, Alex replied softly. Only the shot does. The debriefing was over, but the legend of Alex Kidd Carter was just beginning. He was no longer the quiet rookie, the professor. He was the student of a ghost, the inheritor of an impossible skill. And on a battlefield where legends were forged in fire and blood, a new one had just been born. The atmosphere within SEAL Team 7 transformed overnight. The whispers that followed Alex Carter were no longer tinged with mockery, but with a quiet, almost fearful reverence. He was still the kid, but the name now felt like an ironic tribute rather than a dismissive label. He was the quiet storm, the boy with an old man's soul in his trigger finger. Lieutenant Commander Thorne, for his part, was a changed man. The experience on the ridge had stripped him of his arrogance, replacing it with a humbling curiosity. He no longer saw Alex as a subordinate to be managed, but as a resource to be understood. He canceled the team's standard marksmanship drills and, in a move that stunned the entire platoon, asked Alex to lead the training. Show them what you know, son, Thorne had said, the word son, now carrying a weight of respect, not condescension. Show them the river. Alex didn't teach them in classroom. He took them back to the mountains, to the windy, unpredictable valleys. He didn't lecture them on ballistics. He taught them to be still, to listen, to feel the subtle shifts in temperature and pressure on their skin. He taught them to see the wind not as an obstacle, but as a part of the landscape, a force to be navigated, not fought. Reaper, who had once been his biggest critic, became his most ardent student. He had been humbled by his miss, and he was hungry to understand the art behind Alex's impossible shot. I don't get it, Reaper said one day, frustrated, as they lay on a ridge. I'm looking at the grass, the dust, the mirage. I'm doing everything the book says. You're looking, Alex said quietly. You're not seeing. You're looking for signs. He taught me to look for the absence of signs. The calm in the chaos. That's where the path is. He, Reaper asked. The man who trained you. Alex just nodded, his eyes on the horizon. The ghost remained a ghost, a nameless, faceless legend whose only proof of existence was the impossible skill of his student. The story of the Phantom Shot, as it came to be known, spread through the special operations community. A formal inquiry was launched, not to investigate any wrongdoing, but to understand the physics of what had happened. Ballistics experts from the Naval Warfare Center studied the gun cam footage, running simulations that all concluded the same thing. The shot was a statistical anomaly, a 1 in a billion chance that shouldn't have been possible. But had been. Thorne's official report was a masterpiece of military understatement, but it recommended Alex for the Navy Cross, citing unconventional marksmanship skills under extreme pressure, resulting in the neutralization of a high-value target and the saving of his team. One evening, as Alex sat alone in the communications tent, a secure satellite call came through on a channel that was supposed to be defunct. It was a voice-only call, the audio raspy and old. I heard you made some noise in the mountains, the voice said. Alex felt a lump form in his throat. He hadn't heard that voice in over a year. I did what you taught me, Alex replied. There was a long pause. The old man on the other end seemed to be choosing his words carefully. Discipline is a quiet thing, son, but sometimes it has to make a loud noise to be heard. You did good. They're asking about you, Alex said. They want to know who you are. They already know, the old man chuckled, a dry, rustling sound. I'm the reason they write the books, and I'm the reason the books are wrong. Just remember the most important lesson. The shot is all that matters, Alex recited, the words a creed. No, the old man corrected gently. The reason for the shot is all that matters. Don't ever forget that. The line went dead. The call was untraceable, a whisper from a ghost. Months later, the team was on another mission, this one a hostage rescue in a dense urban environment. They were pinned down, taking heavy fire from a sniper hidden in a clock tower. The position was impossible to assault. Thorne looked at Alex. He didn't give an order. He just nodded. Alex set up his rifle. The shot was difficult, through a narrow window, with civilians in the surrounding buildings. He took his time, his breathing slow, his world shrinking to the crosshairs of his scope. He didn't just see the target. He saw the child in the window of the apartment behind him. He saw the old woman on the street below. He saw the reason for the shot. He fired. The enemy sniper was eliminated. The hostages were saved. Later, back at the base, Thorne found Alex on the roof, looking up at the stars. You know, Thorne said, standing beside him. For a while, I thought he had trained you to be a weapon. Alex shook his head, his gaze still on the sky. No, he said softly. He trained me to be a guardian. The legend of the Whisper would remain a myth, a ghost story told by soldiers. But his legacy, the quiet discipline and profound purpose he had instilled in his student, was very much alive. Alex Carter was no longer just a sniper. He was the keeper of a sacred art, a silent guardian on a distant ridge, his single, perfect shot the only proof that ghosts still walked the earth.